A wedding is a ritual, a ceremony of light, meant to sanctify a union and push back the darkness of the world. But rituals are a delicate magic, and when they are performed incorrectly or in the wrong place, they don't push the darkness back. They open a door. They promise you the happiest day of your life. But for some, it is the last happy day. The stories you are about to hear are not tales of bad catering or difficult in-laws. They are whispers from the edge of reality. I have curated 3 stories from the deep archives of the internet. 3 instances where the veil between worlds grew thin and something terrible was invited to the celebration. Listen to them, and then ask yourself if you are truly brave enough to say, I do. Our first case comes from a bride named Sarah. Her courtship with her fiancé Ben was a picture of normalcy, which is why the gifts were so terrifying. It began a month before the wedding. An anonymous package arrived. Inside was a single, perfect, taxidermied monarch butterfly pinned to a velvet cushion. No note. Ben assumed it was from a quirky relative. Sarah felt a prickle of unease. A week later, another box arrived. Inside, a silver locket. But when Sarah opened it, the pictures weren't of her and Ben. They were of her. 2 candid photos she had never seen before. One of her sleeping in her old college dorm room, the other of her laughing in a coffee shop, taken from a distance. The police were called. There were no leads. The wedding planning was now shrouded in a fog of dread. Every shadow seemed to hold a figure. Every quiet moment was filled with the fear of another delivery. You see, the terror wasn't just that someone was watching her. The terror was in the intimacy of the gifts. This wasn't just a stalker. They were acting like a secret lover, a groom in the shadows, and their final gift was meant to replace Ben entirely. The morning of the wedding, the final package arrived, a large dress box. With trembling hands, Sarah opened it. Inside was a wedding dress. It was breathtakingly beautiful, and it was an exact replica of the one she had chosen, down to the last bead of lace. Pinned to the bodice was a simple, handwritten note. It read, I can't wait to see you in this. Your true husband. The wedding was canceled. They moved out within the week. The scariest part is that she never found out who it was. The gifts stopped, but the feeling of being watched never did. The man from the shadows simply let her go. Or perhaps he's just waiting for her to feel safe again. If our first story was about a horror trying to get in, our second is about a horror that was already there, waiting. This account comes from a wedding photographer who took a job at Blackwood Manor, a historic estate known for its Gothic beauty and its tragic legends. The legend was typical. A bride in the 1800s had taken her own life in the master's suite after her groom was lost at sea. Her spirit was said to linger. The photographer, a skeptic, dismissed it as romantic nonsense. The modern bride, a woman named Chloe, was enamored with the manor's history. She even chose to wear an antique lace veil that had been found preserved in a chest in the attic. My something old, she joked. The photographer began his work, but something was wrong with the photos. In the shots taken in the master suite where Chloe was getting ready, there were strange artifacts, a faint, blurry shape in the background, a strange light flare in the corner of a mirror. He blamed it on the old lenses he was using. But how do you explain a face? While looking at the mirror shots on his camera's display, he saw it. For a fraction of a second, Chloe's reflection wasn't her own. It was another woman, gaunt, pale, her eyes hollow sockets of despair, her mouth open in a silent scream. He blinked, and it was gone. He ran to the ceremony, his heart pounding. He watched Chloe walk down the aisle, her face covered by the antique veil. As she reached the altar and lifted it, the groom gasped. The guests murmured in confusion. Chloe's face was pale, streaked with tears she hadn't been crying, and around her neck were the faint, bruised outlines of a rope burn. The veil hadn't just been a piece of fabric, it was a vessel, and the original owner was trying to finish the ceremony she never could, with a body that wasn't hers. We've had a stalker and a ghost, but our final story is perhaps the most terrifying, because sometimes the monster isn't one person, it's everyone. This story was posted by a wedding musician hired to play at a ceremony in a remote, isolated village deep in the mountains. From the moment he arrived, everything felt off. The villagers were polite, but their eyes were vacant. They moved with a strange, synchronized purpose. The bride was a local girl. The groom was an outsider, a city boy who had fallen in love. He seemed happy, but nervous. The ceremony was strange, full of bizarre, ancient-sounding vows. But the true horror began at the reception. The musician was asked to play a specific song, a simple, repetitive folk melody. As he played, the villagers all rose to their feet. They began to dance, but it wasn't a dance of celebration. It was a silent, ritualistic performance. Their movements were jerky, unnatural, but perfectly synchronized. They danced around the bride and groom, who sat frozen in their chairs. The musician realized two things at once. First, he was the only one not dancing. He was an observer, an audience. Second, the ground beneath the dance floor, a patch of open earth, was growing darker, softer, almost like it was being tilled by the stomping feet. The dance went on for what felt like hours. As the sun set, the groom was led by the bride's father to the center of the tilled earth. The bride watched, her face as empty as the others. The father handed the groom a ceremonial sickle. The musician didn't stay to see what it was for. He packed his instrument, got in his car, and drove. He never looked back. He later found an old folklore book that mentioned the village by name. It spoke of an ancient pact, a ritual where the village welcomes an outsider through marriage once a generation, to be planted in their soil to ensure a prosperous harvest. The wedding wasn't a union, it was an adoption and a sacrifice. A hidden groom, a possessive ghost, a village with a terrible secret. 3 stories, 3 rituals that opened a door to the dark. A wedding is an invitation. You invite your friends, your family. You stand before them and make a promise. But you must be careful. You never truly know what other things hear that invitation. You never know what shadows you've asked to attend. So, if you are planning your big day, perhaps you should think twice.